You were always known as the skinny kid. You could eat whatever you wanted. You probably lived off of like chips and some fast food. And somehow, even with these food choices, you just never gained weight until you got pregnant, or you hit menopause, or you started working, or you went to college. And then it's like overnight, you gain 10, 20, 30 pounds. And the things that you used to do in order to lose that weight are no longer working anymore. So what happened? Today, I'm sharing the 3 secrets behind why you suddenly gained weight and how you can actually lose that body fat. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's in nutrition human performance. On my channel, I share the science-backed and delicious information to help you achieve your weight loss and wellness dreams. So if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Today's video is also sponsored by Element, but more on them in a bit. Okay, the first major reason is hormonal changes. Now, this specifically applies to post-pregnancy as well as menopause. Both of these stages in life can result in an increase in insulin resistance. And when we're insulin resistant, it makes it so that our body can't tolerate carbohydrates as much. So when we eat those carbohydrates, we're more likely to be storing that as fat. This means that we're less metabolically flexible, and we also have a harder time switching into burning fat as fuel. So in terms of how you feel, this probably translates into increased sugar cravings, increased hunger, really hard time losing fat, and a lot easier time gaining body fat. As a result of this insulin resistance, it can also lead to higher rates of muscle loss. And when we lose more muscle, it makes our metabolism slow down a lot faster. This means that it becomes even harder to burn fat as fuel. It also causes a shift in our body composition where we start to gain more body fat and lose more muscle. And specifically after menopause, we start to lose muscle at an even faster rate, which can make it so our metabolism suffers even more. And in order to keep that muscle, we need to be eating enough protein to match the muscle that we're losing. And because of these increased sugar cravings, a lot of people are also not eating enough protein to cover their needs, which again can result in even more muscle loss. So if you are post-pregnancy or menopausal, then this is how you can counter these. The biggest thing is that we need to address the insulin resistance. And there are a lot of different tools that work together in order to combat that insulin resistance. The first is focusing on low glycemic load foods. These are foods like low sugar fruits, cruciferous veggies, broccoli, leafy greens. All these have a lower impact on our blood sugar levels and can help to improve the insulin sensitivity. On the flip side are the high glycemic load foods, things like really dense starches like processed breads and rice. All these have a much bigger impact on our blood sugar levels and can make it harder to address the insulin sensitivity. The next tool is getting 8 hours of sleep. When we have poor sleep, if you're getting less than 8 hours of sleep, or if that sleep quality is really bad, it can actually make our insulin resistance so much worse. Most people are only getting about 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night, which increases our hunger the next day, increases our insulin resistance, and increases our sugar cravings. Instead, we want to aim for 8 hours of sleep. The third is walking after every meal. Walking helps to absorb the excess sugar from the blood supply and helps to stabilize the blood sugar levels so that we don't need to use as much insulin. Even just a 5-minute walk after each of your meals can really make a big difference. The next is eating at least 30 grams of complete protein per meal. This is needed to help prevent those cravings, the hunger, as well as to address the muscle loss, which all around can help to improve the metabolism, which this number also can vary depending on the person. I have a free protein calculator. If you want to check it out, I'll have it linked down in the description below. And the fifth thing for this category is adding in 3 to 4 days per week of resistance training. This helps you stop muscle loss. In fact, it can even help you to build a little bit of muscle, which can help to repair some of that metabolic damage. Ultimately, just makes it easier to burn fat as fuel. Plus, this can result in better body composition results, so looking more toned and fit and having lower body fat percentage. Great options can be like Pilates, strength training, group classes, or even just traditional calisthenics. Now, before we move on, I want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Element. Element is an amazing electrolyte company that was specifically created with intermittent fasting, low carb eating, and athletes in mind. It actually contains the sodium, magnesium, and potassium to help balance electrolyte levels, all without having any sugar. I've been using Element for so many years now. I love it. I used to just add salt to my water for electrolytes, but I was not very consistent with it because it doesn't taste great to drink salty water. But Element tastes so good that they make it really easy for me to get my electrolytes in. And I feel so much better when my electrolytes are properly balanced. My energy levels are better. I just feel better and I'm not getting muscle cramps. My all-time favorite flavor has been their grapefruit salt, and you can get a free 8-count sample pack of Element's most popular drink mix flavors with any purchase at drinkelement.com/autumn. You can find your favorite Element flavor or you can share it with a friend. This is only available through my link, so make sure to check out drinklmnt.com/autumn. The link is also in the description down below. Okay, the second major issue is that you started working. From my experience with working with clients, when people start to work, I've noticed that they start to eat a lot more convenience food items simply because they're so much more busy. Might be like a grab and go breakfast and coffee at Starbucks, and then buying something at work for lunch. All of these are usually lower protein, higher carb, and more ultra processed. For example, a Starbucks latte can have between 30 to 50 grams of added sugar depending on the type and size that you're getting, and a blueberry muffin from Starbucks has about 5 grams of protein and 27 grams of sugar. The other issue when people start working is that we just tend to exercise a lot less. Now, what's interesting is that we actually start to do more workouts. So you might be going to the the gym or you might be hitting up those classes. But because we're commuting and sitting at a desk all day, this results in us being overall so much less active for the entire rest of the day. And sitting throughout the day can be another huge contributor to insulin resistance. Just to put this into perspective, kids below the age of 18 tend to get between 10 to 16,000 steps per day versus the average adult is getting about 4,700 steps per day. That's like a quarter to a half of what we're getting as kids. And that can result in more muscle loss and more insulin resistance. The second is also that same less sleep issue. We just tend to be more busy when we first start working. But on top of that, because we are less active, it actually makes it so that we're less sleepy by the end of the day, and the sleep that we're getting is lower quality. So here's what you do to counter these issues. The first biggest huge one is to start making your own meals. This alone can make a huge impact on your goals. And even just focusing on prepping one of your meals per day can really be a great place to start. It doesn't have to be like a gourmet 5-star chef meal. In fact, the meals can be really simple and still taste amazing. I have a lot of free recipes that you can check out on my YouTube channel, on my blog. Of course, I have my programs as well, but I also have a free 5-day high protein meal plan if you want to check that out. It's 5 days of high protein meals, all very simple and very delicious, and it's a great place to start. So if you want that free 5-day high protein meal plan download, I will have the details for that link down in the description below. You can also find it with this link right here. The next thing you need to do is prioritize your sleep. The best thing to do here is to set a sleep schedule and stick to it. Yes, this will mean that you're probably going to miss a few things. Like you probably won't be able to watch the same shows that you used to watch. Or perhaps you're coming home a little bit earlier when maybe you would have been staying out a little bit later. But actually having a sleep schedule that supports your goals will not only help you with that fat loss progress, but will also make you feel so much more energized, so much happier, and so much better. My personal sleep schedule is typically like 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., although I will say that is a little different right now with a newborn. The next thing to do is add more walking. And I will admit this can be really tricky when you are commuting and also working. But ideally, let's try and aim for about 10,000 steps per day. Although studies show that even just hitting about 8,300 steps per day has a lot of benefits. Two great tools that you can use is to have a step tracker. A step tracker can help you to stay more accountable and actually see where you're starting at and how many more steps you need to be getting throughout the day. The other amazing tool, especially if you do work a desk job, is a walking pad. I recently added this into my home office and it makes me walk so much more throughout the day than I did before. I'll link the one that I use down in the description below as well if you want to check that out. Okay, and the third major time that people tend to start gaining weight is when they go to college. Now, this is classically known as like freshman 15. And yes, it is partly because of drinking. However, being somebody who did go to college and saw this experience firsthand, I think it's much more than just the drinking. I think it's also that kids are no longer eating at home and now are fending for themselves. When kids are younger, they have their parents cooking for them. They might be cooking their dinners, they might be preparing their lunches. Overall, kids are probably not used to preparing or putting together their own meals, which means that they don't really know what constitutes a meal. And so by default, they go to the things that just sound good for them. And when you're 18 and in college, it's a lot of ultra processed foods. It's going to sound really good. Those ultra processed, quick and easy foods that don't require cooking, like cereal or frozen foods, are going to be low protein and really high in those processed carbs. And in fact, there's some studies that have found when we eat mostly ultra processed foods, it can actually cause us to eat about 800 extra calories extra per day. And when we're in college, this is where we start to build the habits for the rest of our life. So when kids are 18, 19, 20, 21, and they're in college and they're eating a lot of these ultra processed foods, it's probably going to start shifting into their adulthood too and form these habits that can be really hard to break because ultra processed foods are also so addictive. If you're a parent, you can help to set your kid up for success by actually helping them to learn how to cook, or at the very least, learn how to prepare a meal. Help them to understand what actually constitutes a meal, how they need to be getting some protein there, some fat, some fiber, and then teaching them the very simple basics of cooking. It doesn't have to be complex, it doesn't have to be difficult, but just some really basic things like how to actually put food onto a cookie sheet and bake it for a meal, or maybe how to grill some meat. This alone can help kids to no longer be dependent on these ultra processed pre-made foods and have a sense of independence that also supports their long-term health and wellness goals. Now, I recently shared a video on why those in the 1960s had such low body fat percentages and the healthy habits that they accidentally did every day to achieve this. So if you want to check that out, you can find it with this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.